All right, everybody. We are here just minutes after the Ohio State Buckeyes pulled off an unbelievable 17-14 victory over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This is your Land Grant Podcast Network Instant Recap Pod. My name is Matt Tamanini. I am joined by Justin Gold. But Justin, I had notes. I had a script for this.
It's gone.
I have thrown that out. I have thrown that out. Also, I can't hear super well because I'm at my parents' house and I forgot my headphones. So I'm using my 8-year-old nephew's Orlando Magic headphones that don't really fit my head, and he can probably never use again because I've got a very big head. But what a game. That was horrible and painful in so many ways, but it was also exhilarating and soul cleansing in a lot of ways as well. We can talk about all the stuff that didn't go according to plan, and we will, but we have to talk about the drive that won that game. It started off with two really, really ugly short throws by Kyle McCord. But after that, he was next to perfect, taking the team down the field in a way that was reminiscent of something that you would see from Sam Hartman, to be quite honest with you, someone who has been in college for many years. And even though NBC kept saying that this was his fourth start, it was his fifth start of his career, obviously fourth of this season. But it was executed about as perfectly as you can get. Started off with the incompletion to Travion that he threw out into the left flat. Then the next one was the overthrow where he had plenty of room to run. But after that, he followed it up with a 23-yard completion to Emeka Egbuka. He did throw deep to Julian Fleming. It was overthrown. I thought we could have argued for pass interference, but they weren't calling that all game. No. Then he had a short completion to Cade Stover. He had an incompletion that was almost picked off over the middle. But after that, from 4th and 7 on, he was incredible. He had the 7-yard pass to Julian Fleming. He had a 19-yard pass to Marvin Harrison Jr. There were a couple incompletions mixed in there. I still think that it was a horrible call on the intentional grounding, but he did an incredible job to get rid of that ball to avoid the sack and the time running off the clock. If you're telling me it's an intentional grounding or it's the sack, I would much prefer to take the intentional grounding, because even though you lose the yardage on the penalty, you still keep the time. And then down around the goal line, he was really, really impressive, kind of working things properly. I do wish that he would have gotten some of those throws to Marv up a little higher. On the first one in the corner, at the front corner of the end zone, you could see Marv pointing up. He wanted that ball in the air, but to be quite honest with you, I did not think that Kyle McCord had that drive in him. And I'm very, very happy to be wrong about that, because he won that game. He won that game. And he deserves all the credit in the world for that.
Yeah. There's so much to say, Matt. As you could tell, we're on video here. Yeah, I'm a bigger boy. Okay. My heart can't be put through what I just went through. I like my salt, I think my levels are a little high. So I can't these little ebbs and flows of this game. This team, I've never seen a team with 9 lives ever in my life like this. And it was pretty apparent on that throw to Cade Stover that he never saw the safety underneath that, pretty much should have been a pick. As you said, the 2 passes to Trayvon Henderson where one got and they batted down. The second one, they were on the same page. And then, he steps up and makes that third. If this team goes on to win something of substance this year, that 3rd and 19 throw to Egbuka is going to go down maybe in history. I mean, that was one of the best throws he made all season. And it was just because, he was able to just, I don't, whether it was just figure out, just bring down something deep inside of him. Whatever went wrong in the game, whatever passes he didn't make, whatever he might have done, with Egbuka or Marvin Harrison that didn't connect, he just put it all aside and said, I'm going to walk this team down the field and put us in position to win. And then just the confidence that it took, Ryan. And it's so crazy because does Ryan Day still deserve a lot of criticism for that end around? Absolutely. That was unreal, asinine. That was insane to call that. And it was like Notre Dame expected him to overthink that. They saw it coming. But then I was criticizing him for not using the timeout on defense, because we know it's timeout's more valuable on defense. But then if he uses it, that intentional grounding takes 10 seconds off the clock. Game's damn near over. I can't fault him for that. That was a great job.
We were arguing about it at my house. My dad was like, call the timeout. Yeah. I was like, I understand what you're saying. Like you said, a timeout is much more beneficial on defense than it is on offense, because on defense, you can't stop the clock, but on offense, you can. But in a game like that, I think having one timeout in your back pocket, if he'd had 2 or 3, yes, call the timeout.
Yeah.
I like saving one because you don't know whether it's a 10-second runoff or you complete something to the 1 yard line to Emeka Egbuka and you have to call a timeout. You know, like those things, you need that timeout. So I was okay with that. I understand people who were upset about it because, like you said, it makes more sense to have that timeout, or just timeouts in general on defense. But I was okay with that one. But, you know, I really think that when there's down to, 7 seconds left, third down, you have 2 plays left. I think that the cadence of those calls was the correct one to throw the ball on third down when you have, you know, you don't have to worry about if you run the ball and you get stopped short, you have to worry about getting back. That's fine. But when you miss that one and you get it back with, 3 seconds left, I think was technically how much was on the clock.
3 seconds.
Let's go. Let's run it. You know, at that point, the field is so compressed that even though you do have the best athletes on the team at your wide receiver positions, you don't have a lot of room for them to use that athleticism. And we have seen Ohio State struggle in short yardage on third down, on fourth down, in the red zone, not just in this game, not just in this season, but for a number of years here. But at that point, it felt like it was the right call because you kind of tried everything else and it hasn't worked. So give it to the guy who was a former linebacker, who is an absolute beast running that ball, who refuses to go down without a fight. And I think that was the right play. I have so many issues with Ryan Day calling plays all the time. Pretty much. I've literally been writing articles about how he should not be calling plays for almost 2 years now. Not because I don't think he's a great play caller, but I think because, 1, he's got too many other things to do as the head coach. 2, because I personally always think that a play caller on both offense or defense should be upstairs so they can look down on the play. But also 3, like, I do think he gets in his own head. I think he gets a little, I don't know if nervous is the right word, but he retreats into himself. What's that?
I think he overthinks it, honestly.
Yeah. But all that being said, I say that to preface the fact that I think that he did a great job after those first few incompletions to Trey. I think the play calls for the rest of that drive were pretty great. Does that erase everything that happened earlier in the game? No, and we'll get to that. But I think that for all of the criticism that I think Day rightly deserves for this game, and he will get it, I think that drive showed what he can do when he gets the ball in positions for his players to make the right plays. That drive was the only one in this whole game that looked to me like it was the second and third quarters of last week's game, when Kyle was getting rid of the ball quickly. He was getting guys in space. He wasn't looking necessarily to just hope that a wide receiver beat a guy. There was some sort of play design that got them free quickly. We had that quick slant to, I think it was Emeka over the middle, a real quick get rid of the ball kind of thing. That was the only time we saw that really all game. And that probably had a little bit to do with Notre Dame playing a little bit safer because they thought they wanted to keep everything in front, didn't want Emeka or Marv to get deep. I get that. But it was a well-called drive, a well-executed drive by Kyle McCord, and an absolutely Herculean 1-yard run for Chip Trainum. So all the flowers in the world go to this team for that last drive, because I admit I was not feeling super great about their possibilities when they got the ball back with, what was it, like a minute and a half left or something?
Yeah, and I'll say this: Emeka Egbuka whoever was guarding him was going to need a restraining order on him just to even get closer than that to him, because it felt like he had a restraining order on him because he was just open the entire game. He was finding gaps. He's just so good at finding the holes in the secondary and either sitting down or running through them or whatever it takes to just be open. Because even when, he dropped the touchdown pass, which a greatly would have been a nice catch. He's an NFL receiver, so he probably should have came up with it. It's a great pass. So that is what it is. But he was open all game, as you mentioned. I truly believe if he wasn't open, he was being held. It was insane how many holds it looked like on defense they had. Marvin Harrison
all game long for everybody. It was insane.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison has a catch that they call a not catch. Then 20 minutes later, they're like, "Oh, sorry, he caught it." It's like, what are we doing here? This is insane. And the broadcast was I could do an
Horrible.
entire podcast on the
Yeah,
broadcast.
just absolutely horrible.
It started. I knew it was going to be off when they said this was his, first year. His first career start was against Indiana. No, it wasn't. He's had 4 career starts. No, he has 5. And it's just, I think they called Jesse Mirko Jesse Micro.
Micro.
I mean, it's like
that's a good nickname.
In front of you, it's a great nickname.
It's a great nickname.
It's hilarious because he is like 6'4", but it's like the names are in front of you. I know
Eagles on the back of their jerseys.
Yeah. I think Noah Eagles are pretty good, but he didn't pass the nepotism test today, and because his dad is one of the greats.
He's the best.
Yeah, so that was a tough one. I've never loved Blackledge, but I think he's been okay. Today was horrible, but we'll get into that. But when it comes to just Kyle McCord and just being able to, I guess it felt like, and I tweeted this before the last drive of like, I think Kyle McCord's played a really good game. I think the play calling's let him down a little bit today.
Yeah,
because I think when they opened it up, he made good passes. The pass, I think that's a touchdown to Marvin Harrison. If 1, he's not held, and 2, he's not taped up. He doesn't have 5 pounds of tape on his leg. I think he runs under that ball and it's a touchdown. Ibuka kind of dropped a touchdown. He made a couple shaky passes. The one he kind of tossed up to Cade Stover or whoever you want to call with those 6 people in that area. But, they made the first down. So sometimes you got to trust your guys. Obviously, that would have been a game-ending interception at the end of the game. But, if they don't make the play, don't make the play. You got to put it behind you and move forward. And the next pass he made was the best pass of the game. So I think that says a lot about his just will to move forward, put the pass behind him because you're going to make mistakes. It was nice to see that it doesn't seem like that really affects him. If he makes a mistake, he just puts it behind him and moves in. And that's what you need because you're not perfect. You're going to make mistakes. You're a young quarterback. I think he outplayed Sam Hartman. I don't think Hartman did anything spectacular today. He made some passes he had to, but outside of that, they just couldn't stop the 95 running backs Notre Dame apparently has, which I'm not sure that rotation makes a lot of sense because Esteme is really good. And I think he had 9 carries. I kind of wanted, I don't know.
Let me see. Audric Estime had he had 14 carries for 70 yards.
Okay, so he had a lot at the end, so that makes more sense.
Yeah.
But, they moved those guys in and out. It was kind of interesting to see.
I think your point about Kyle McCord kind of taking things in stride and moving on is a good one because he doesn't have the arm talent that CJ Stroud has or had when he was in Columbus. He doesn't have the raw athleticism that Justin Fields had when he was in Columbus. But I think what he does have is something that we've heard about him throughout fall camp and even in the spring is that he's got this quiet confidence and leadership that goes a long way in games like this, because if you don't have that sheer talent that can just win a game on your arms or legs on your own, you have to have something that kind of gets you in that right headspace to make the right decisions. Did he make the right decisions every time? No. Like we said, there were some pretty bad plays and potentially catastrophic passes that he made on that last drive, but he was able to let it roll off his back and keep going. So do I think this means that Kyle McCord is a Heisman Trophy finalist? No. Does he have to be? No. Does there need to be progress? Absolutely. Fortunately, Ohio State has an off week coming up and we can move forward and hopefully continue to build on that last drive, because there was a lot of things earlier that need a lot of work from everybody on the field. And we'll talk about the lines and the play calling and some of the other stuff, but we can't go any further without talking about Ryan Day's post-game press conference.
It's incredible.
What was that? Like, we don't see Ryan Day like
I
that
need
very
that
often.
I need that going forward so much.
Where was that? Where was that all game? Like,
yeah.
I said it, when we recorded our preview podcast, Know the Reason Why, I talked about Lou Holtz. I said Lou Holtz went off, said Ohio State was soft, kind of called him out. I said that to me, combined with Ryan Day on his radio show saying he was going to let it rip, I was like, game over. Like, Notre Dame can't keep up when Ryan Day is in his bag like that. And when he's got something to prove, that's when he's at his best. We didn't see that. We didn't see that in the game. I love what he did after the game, kind of stepping up for his players. I don't know that like 107-year-old dude, talking about you saying that the team is soft and has gotten beaten by teams that are tougher, which is objectively true. Like, other than maybe the Georgia game where I don't think that's why they won. But the Michigan games, that's true. Like that's a legitimate, excuse, but I don't care. Like, we've seen Nick Saban and Bill Belichick for years manufacture outrage and bulletin board material from much, much less than what Lou gave them. So I'm totally good with taking some idiotic comments from an old gas bag like Lou Holtz and using them. I just wish they would have used them more. But beside that, Lou Holtz getting absolutely lit up on national television on what was essentially an NBC Notre Dame broadcast, even though it technically wasn't, was absolutely hilarious. And I know that that's not Ryan Day's personality all the time. I think that I've said this before. Like, I think Ryan Day is an incredible person. I think he's a great leader of men. I think he's the type of person you would want your son to play college football for. I don't know that and this is tough for me to say because Justin, I am not an Urban Meyer guy. I'm just not. But I wish he had a little bit of Urban in him. Maybe the Urban we saw, like the type of Urban that we saw after this game, if he can just mix in a dash of that, a quarter of that into his mindset, into his play calling, into his preparation all the time, I think that would be for the better. Maybe that's what he's like all the time off the field. We don't know because we're not at practice, but it's not what we see, and it's not what we see directly from him or through his team. But I loved it. I think it was great. I think it was hilarious. I think it was perfect. And I was ready to run through a wall after that. And I hope we get more of that moving forward, because I think they're going to need it to kind of cover up some of the weaknesses that this team has that they haven't had in years past.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny because, first of all, they showed Lou Holtz at halftime. I think he was with his national championship team. He was in bed 10 minutes later. So there's just no scenario.
They were holding him up. They were prepping
they were
him
literally
up,
holding him up. He was in bed 10 minutes later. He had a peanut butter sandwich, went to bed. He didn't hear what Ryan Day said. But I mean, I'm actually in a weird spot because I used to work about 3 years ago for the local paper that Lou Holtz, the town he's from. And I got to interview him for like an hour. He's an amazing guy, very, very nice. Gave me all the time in the world to talk to him, which was cool. But that all being said, it was hilarious to just see Ryan Day, of all people, light up Lou Holtz at the end. To be honest, he said those things. So Ryan Day did. It's not, we talk about how Michael Jordan used to manufacture rage and all these like adversities to like the whole thing. I'm sure Ryan Day is now going to be a meme of I took that personal after Lou Holtz said that. So, we're going to see that for sure. Wow, Northwestern beat Minnesota. I didn't see that.
Oh, wow.
Also, Cats. Yeah, that's fantastic. Good for them. And Akron is beating Indiana. Not a good day for the Big Ten as I'm looking through the scores. But yeah, it's just I need mad Ryan Day all the time. That Georgia photo of him fired up and running out there. And we saw it and we did see it in the first quarter when they got that 4th and 1 stop where, again, generational defender Sonny Styles read the play the whole way and got that stop. Maybe it was the second quarter. And it might have honestly been the third quarter. I'm not even remembering right. My mind is swirling. But he was out there and he was like on the hash mark and he was throwing his fist and he was, he's firing them up. And that's just, it's something you don't see often. And I don't need that from my head coach. I don't think really Kirby Smart does it that much. You kind of see, I think like Dabo and guys like that do it too much to where it's like they're kind of making it about themselves. So every coach has a different coaching technique and not one is better than the other in terms. But I do think it's nice to see Ryan Day just outwardly show that, because I do think sometimes when you're looking at him, it's not that he looks like, I don't know if nervous is the word, but I don't know, nervous might be the word. I don't know really what it is, but he does look like sometimes it's kind of what I think people used to say about CJ Stroud, right? Because CJ was he was just really quiet. And
cerebral.
And what we learned about it was he's just a quiet killer. He's just going to kill you. He's not going to say anything. He's just going to kill you. But, so that's, and like you said, it's very cerebral. So I just think that's what it is. But as a fan base, it is nice to see that guy like come out and just say like, you know what? Like I heard what they said. I didn't like what they said. And we used what they said. And that was it was nice to see that. And he looked like at the end, like halfway through, he looked like genuinely offended at times.
Yeah.
By what Lou Holtz said. And it was hilarious because he's a nice guy. And he said, I forget but he said, thank you for your patience. Yeah. Thank you for your patience. Yeah. Thank you for your patience was brilliant to end that. Cause like you said, he's a genuinely amazing, nice guy. So that was just the perfect way to end it. So when it comes to football, sports are simple. If you finish with more points than the other team, you win, right? Did Ohio State maybe deserve to win? I don't know if deserves the right word. I struggle with that. They're like, they don't deserve to be there. Well, who makes that determination? But they won. They had 17 and Notre Dame had 14. So at the end of the day, you're 4-0 and even if they lose this game, it doesn't take the playoff out of the realm
No.
anyway, because if you win the Big Ten, you go to the playoff. That's very simple. But it's a hell of a confidence boost because it's the game you probably threw away at one point that you won, and that's always nice.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what Bill Connolly's SP Plus post-game win expectancy is for this one, because coming down the stretch, I did not expect them to win. We will see what the numbers said. But let's turn it over to the other side of the ball, because the Ohio State defense was both lights out and it was both lights out and also like porous and frustrating. It's really weird to do that in a game where you only give up 2 scores and you only gave up 351 yards. And what's crazy about it is you always talk about balance. Notre Dame went for 175 passing yards and 176 rushing yards. If you would have told me that, I would not have believed that. I would have thought that they ran for a lot more than 176, but maybe that goes to show that, the clock rules were making it a little easier for them to extend drives when they weren't actually producing as many yards as we thought. Both teams ended up with almost the exact same number of plays. Ohio State ran 65 offensive plays. Notre Dame ran 64. Ohio State averaged 5.6 yards per play. Notre Dame averaged 5.5. It's eerily similar as you look between these two teams in almost every category except time of possession. Notre Dame had 34 minutes and 59 seconds. So essentially 35 minutes of possession in that game. And it showed. I think that is a huge reason why you saw down the stretch, Ohio State's defense was getting gassed and gashed like they weren't in the first half. In the first half, they were lights out. I mean, that first drive was, was a little shaky, but I often kind of just say, first drives are first drives. They're generally more about emotion than anything else. But you got the turnover on downs on that one. You got the missed field goal on the second one. After that, though, they were pretty lights out, for, the rest of the half. Then you get into the second half. You have an 8-play drive that got turned over on downs again. Then you had the 2 incredibly long drives, the 75-yard drive and the 96-yard drive that both ended in touchdowns. And you're thinking at this point, like, either Notre Dame figured it out or Ohio State's defense is completely exhausted, or maybe a little bit of both. Yeah. And I just didn't feel like Ohio State's offense was going to be able to turn that around. But, for all of those extra yards that they gave up in the second half, the defense really was what allowed Ohio State to stay in this game, because otherwise, the offense wasn't there. But we can talk about whether Jim Knowles' scheme and approach works. We can talk about whether the defensive line is producing for Larry Johnson like it did in years past. We can talk about whatever you want, the potential disagreement in philosophy between those two coaches. But this defense is much better than it was last year. And I know last year's game against Notre Dame was low scoring too, but you have to be
Tyler Buckner.
Yes, exactly. Sam Hartman and Tyler Buckner are very, very different at quarterback. Yeah. But you can't watch this defense and say they're not significantly better than last year. Are they perfect? No. Are they great? Probably not that either. But they are a really, really good defense. And despite the fact that they gave up it was 14 minutes on, total of play time, an entire quarter basically on those 2 drives. Despite that, they played really well. And I think there are things to improve upon. And if they can play like that and continue to improve like that moving forward this season, I think that there are still legitimate championship aspirations for this team, because we're 4 weeks in. They're about ready to have their bye week. You can't expect this team to be a finished product right now. 1, because of the new quarterback. 2, because of the new offensive line. 3, because they are still in year 2 under Jim Knowles on defense. So you expect there to be progress throughout the course of the season. But you have to be able to see something at this point, a third of the way into the season, or are they a third of the way into the season? 12, a third of the way into the season, 4 games.
30%,
I couldn't remember what number game we were all of a sudden. But you have to be able to see something. You're like, is there something there where you can see something move forward? That's what I thought in 2014. The team was not perfect at 4 games into the season, but they got better each week. And I think we saw enough from this defense against a legitimate opponent to say they're not there, but they have something that could allow them to get there if they continue to improve through the course of the season.
Yeah, I like to think Ohio State's defense slash Jim Knowles listened to our preview podcast because we mentioned the big plays. That's what Notre Dame does. They hit you over the top. They hit you with big plays, and they were clearly, especially in that first half, not as much the second half, but the first half. Like we're gonna give them some yards. We're gonna make sure they don't hit us over the top and make sure they don't kill us with the big play. And they did that. It was so weird because, like you said, as dumb as this is about to sound, I didn't realize till halftime they had no points because they just felt like they were kind of driving down the field, moving the ball. But again, they just had 0 points. And that's really all that matters if you keep them off the board. I think that fourth down by Sam Hartman was kind of, I think, a lapse of judgment on his part. He kind of put the ball like behind him, maybe, which was kind of a weird thing. But yeah, he probably should have picked that up, and they probably score points if he does. But at the end of the day, they didn't score any points. And then I've never been more confident in my life that a field goal kicker was about to miss a kick than that. That was really weird. But the minute he walked out there, I was like, he's going to miss. I don't know why. And he did.
Genius. You're Miss Cleo, Justin.
I was just like, I've never called a miss kick, but this dude looks like he's going to miss this kick. And he did. So it was just, if you can keep him off the board, that's all you really care about. Another thing is it's always the one position of football where it's great where you don't hear their name is your cornerback. I'm not positive I heard them say Denzel Burke's name the entire game because they didn't even try to throw at him. No. They were like, wherever he is, we're going that way. And it was awesome to watch. I think Igbeneusen, outside of that kind of obvious pass interference that he kind of played off, in his defense, I think the receiver got his hands in his face. But he had a great game as well. Again, Sonny Styles is just all over the field. Jordan Hancock made a couple great plays. The secondary was great. Not the best game for Steel Chambers. So I'm curious if maybe we start to see a little bit of CJ Hicks or whatever the case may be there. But I do think Steel Chambers has earned some benefit of doubt. He hasn't played great, but he's played well in general. And you're not going to be perfect all the time. I think he just made there was a couple of times it looked like he might have had contained that he let the edge loose and just the little things like that. But, JTT, that would have been a tough pick at the end, but it's a pick we've seen him make. So I think it was like, he kind of set the bar high for himself because it would have been athletic, but again, he's an athlete. So Jack Sawyer, I heard his name called more today. So that's good. Tyleik Williams is having a phenomenal year.
He really is.
He was being held every play that he didn't make a play. So good for him. And, Mike Hall, he made a nice play at the end of the game. So it's just a little bit of everything with these guys. Obviously, we talked about Tommy Eichenberg. He's just solid. He's not going to be the greatest linebacker in the world, but he's never going to be bad. He's just going to do what he does. And I think that's good for a middle linebacker, the leader of your defense, obviously a captain. So it was like when they scored their first touchdown, I tweeted, I was like, the defense was going to give up some points at some point. They're not going to shut out Notre Dame. Notre Dame's having one of the best offensive years in literally a century. Like, they kept talking about it. So, they were going to fold at some point. The offense had to put up some points, and they put up 3 more. So
yeah. I think that there are some guys on this defense who kind of showed you who they are today. I think one of them was Tyleik Williams. I think one of them was Denzel by not showing you anything because he didn't have the opportunity. I think that says a lot about how opposing offenses view him. I think Lathan Ransom had a really nice game as well. Again, Tommy had a really decent game. The thing is like I understood why Cody Simon was in the game so much. They were going with a 3 linebacker set because they are a team that like to run the ball so much. I understand getting him in there. That's a situation where I would really like to see CJ. It's one thing if like they have been saying, or at least alluding to the fact that like, oh, he's not ready, but they've said he's ready. Like they say, like he's going to play, and he really hasn't had the opportunity to. I think that's that's a game where I wouldn't have minded seeing him get mixed in because while Cody Simon, I think, made a couple plays that were pretty nice, especially early on in the game. There were other times, the 4th down. I think there were other times when he looked just out athleted, like he was almost like he was in the right spot or was going to the right spot, but he was a second slow and he just kind of got beat. Those are places where maybe CJ isn't exactly in the right spot because he doesn't have that experience, but his athleticism can make up for that. I'm not going to question Steel Chambers as a whole because I think he has proven that he is a high quality starting linebacker, a potential all conference linebacker. This was just not a good game for him. It wasn't. He so many times hit the wrong hole on run plays. Like it was like anytime that a hole was closed by our defensive lineman, that's where he ended up, and they usually went right around him. So that was not exactly a great run fit performance by Steele. But it's not like he shouldn't be playing kind of thing. I think overall the defense really showed well, and it's going to be incumbent on the offense to get them more rest. You cannot let them wear you down. The defense still has to be much better at getting pressure on the quarterback. And now, admittedly, Notre Dame has one of the best offensive line in the country. They also have to be better on third down. If I look here, Notre Dame was, pull up the right stats. Notre Dame was only 5 for 10 on third down, which is very surprising to me. And you factor in fourth downs, they were only 5 for 12, where Ohio State was 11 for 20 when you factor in third and fourth down. That's another one of those stats where I said, like, I would have thought they had like 250 rushing yards. I would have thought that they were like 7 for 10 or 8 for 10 on third down. So that's even better than I expected from the defense, or at least what I thought just looking at it. So certainly things that need to get better, Justin. Certainly things that I think you have to kind of clean up on both sides of the ball. Chuck just made a comment here to us. Too many yards after initial contact by defense, tackling too high, it seems. 100%. I think that is partially Audric Estime is just
a beast.
And like, he's one of the best running backs in the country, but it's also true. I think you have to, I think there were times, like you even saw it with JT, where he would hit a guy with his shoulder rather than taking him down. There was one where I think he actually might have pushed him for like a 3-4 more yards because he hit him rather than wrapped him up. I think that's a little bit endemic of like just how football players are these days. They want to go for the big hit rather than wrapping up. So I definitely think that's absolutely accurate. But Travion Henderson deserves a lot of credit. He had 104 yards rushing. Obviously 61 of those were on a single carry, but that's who we think Trey is. Or who he could be, or who he can be. I'm not sure why throughout the first 3 games of the season, they were kind of insistent on splitting up the carries almost equally between him, Chip, and Mayan. It might have been to save him for games like this because of the injuries that he had last year, that they want to just make sure that he was fresh and didn't have as many opportunities to get hurt. But that's why you keep giving the ball to Trey. Does he still dance a little bit too much in the hole? Yes. Do they still call too many stretch plays into the boundary? Absolutely. If I see another one of those again in my life, it will be too soon. But he has the ability to hit runs like that. He has the ability to break plays like that. My brother, as we were watching this game, he said, how did nobody catch him? I said, because he's really freaking fast. And he doesn't look like it. He's a bigger guy. Like when you look at him, he's not Chip or Mayan big necessarily, but like he's stout. So you don't think that he's going to be a guy who's going to be able to break off a 60-yard run and kind of leave guys in his dust, but he is. So I think that kind of shows who he is and what he's capable of. And I think the offense as a whole, I probably give it a B minus, C plus. But I think when they were doing the things that they do best, which is really mostly about Ryan Day, although I do think some of it is Kyle McCord being a little bit hesitant at times to kind of push the ball. But when he can get rid of the ball quickly, when he's not necessarily looking at guys in bracketed coverage, or he's not having to force things to check down guys, like I think their offense is still really good. Is it as great as it has been in the rest of Ryan Day's time with Dwayne, Justin, and CJ? No, but I think the offense is pretty good. So overall, there's a lot of things that did not go well for 58 minutes of this game, 58 and a half minutes of this game. But I don't think you can walk away from this game feeling anything other than excited by what you saw in the last minute. It doesn't erase everything that happened before that. And those are questions that I think Ryan Day and the coaching staff are going to have to answer. But right now, here at 11:41 p.m., I'm just giddy and ecstatic that they were able to somehow, against all odds, pull that one out, Justin.
Yeah, and I think the bye is going to come at a good time because, first of all, let's get Marvin Harrison completely healthy. Also, that play was so indicative of the type of player he is, because it was him making a block that all elite receivers just don't make. Like, I mean, NFL scouts have to be salivating watching the dude that has again, that they call comically talented, which is hilarious to say if you're a scout, make a block like that, because that sealed off the entire play. That literally sprung the touchdown, which almost turned into be like a hurtful touchdown, because also not only did Harrison get hurt, but the defense had no time to get any, because they just had a long drive. So the defense had no time to get, rested. So it was kind of funny, but obviously I'm never going to argue a 60-yard touchdown. Trey Henderson looked phenomenal. He looks, again, I've said it before, he looks better and better every game. I think the bye is coming at a good time to get them kind of ready, because the next 4 games are all tough. I mean, Maryland on October 7th, they're going to be 5-0 going into that, because they play Indiana next week. I'm very comfortable Maryland will beat them. Maryland is a very interesting team. Their defense still has a long way to go. They held Michigan State to 9 points today, but Michigan State is just a dumpster fire. So, but that offense is real. Tulia is very real. They got some real weapons. So it'll be interesting to see the secondary kind of go from this, this Notre Dame offense, which is talented, to another talented offense, but in a kind of a different way.
Yeah, completely.
Because Notre Dame doesn't let Sam Hartman kind of sling the ball. Maryland just gives Tulia the ball and says, "All right, go. Good luck." If he throws picks. They don't care. They just let him sling it, which is awesome. It's fun to watch.
We've seen Ohio State struggle to put away Maryland in the past.
Last year was insane.
Yeah, we also know that Ryan Day absolutely hates Maryland's guts because of what they allegedly did with turning Chase Young in for like someone paying, like a friend of a friend or a friend of the family paying for his girlfriend to fly to the Rose Bowl. From all indications are they blame Maryland's program because Chase is from Maryland. People know. Yeah. So this could be interesting. Like, do we get post-game Lou Holtz hater Ryan Day against Maryland in 2 weeks?
Awesome.
I would like that.
I hope he just manufactures stuff when we're playing Wisconsin. When we're playing, like, I don't even know. Somebody just
Luke Fickell said the food at the Woody sucks.
Yeah, so we're gonna run it up
on the bulletin board.
Just do it. I mean, that's kind of what they're doing in Colorado. These guys are kind of saying, Dan Lanning says something, so Colorado uses it. Obviously today it didn't work, but they're using bulletin board material, and it works. That's what all the greats have done. Tom Brady did it. Michael Jordan did it. So it's great to see like them actually using it. It's nice to see that they're seeing this stuff, and obviously you can't see everything. God, I hope like Ryan Day is not on Twitter. That's if he's like, people are tweeting about me, I'd be like, no, don't do that. But you're obviously going to see Lou Holtz make national comments. That's a whole different thing. So
look, I wrote a thing the other week. Like, I know that people get mad at us because we're the only outlet that really talks about the shortcomings of the program as openly, because we're not a news outlet. We're a fan blog. I think it is 100% fair for fans to be frustrated with things in this program. This program, I believe, has underachieved despite all of the success, despite all of the wins, despite how close they have been to winning national titles. I think they've underachieved. The recruiting is second to only Georgia and Alabama. And I think that it's actually at the right positions, probably even better. And we know what Ryan Day and other members of this coaching staff are capable of doing with their position groups. As a whole, that has not happened. I mentioned earlier why I don't think Ryan Day should be calling plays. It is not against Ryan Day for the most part, although I do think that his turtling has increased the fervor with which I believe that he should give up his play calling duties. People think that we are negative. Y'all don't even know how big of homers we are. Like, we are, as if you were in our Slack channel, you would know we are the biggest homers in the world. We want this program to be great. And we understand that, or at least we think, maybe understand is not the right word. And I don't want to speak for everybody. I will say for me, all of the wins that Ryan Day has, I'm very grateful for. I'm glad that he wins those games. I'm glad that he does not lose to teams that he should not lose to. That is a breath of fresh air. That is something that we can count on, and I love that. I don't want to see this team settle for 10-2 on the season, or 10-3, or even 11-2 with a bowl game. Like, I want this team winning national titles, because why wouldn't you? This is the team you root for. They have the talent. So if people want to say that like we're negative for pointing out the fact that they keep running the same plays over and over and they never work, or that the defensive line, despite all of the 5-star talent that it has, still can't get any pressure on a quarterback, or that I don't know what else people get mad at, that Ryan Day shouldn't be calling. But if you want to get mad about that, that's fine. We're fans. We're not journalists, at least not in this endeavor. But like, we're also right, like, I mean, and that's like, I think objectively we're right. I think if you look back at our history, like, we say the things that end up everybody else coming along to months down the road. And I'm not saying that because like, I think we're smarter than everybody. I think it's just because everybody else on the Buckeye beat can't say these things. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that we're necessarily smarter than everybody, but what it does is it pisses people off. So like, that's when Herb Street did his whole like psychotic fans thing. Like, look, if you want to say we're psychotic by saying that Ryan Day shouldn't be calling plays and that he is, continually underachieving, that's fine. Do that. I think we're right. But we have a track record of really, really good players, and I would like to see them kind of achieve what they're capable of. And I know that that's what they want as well. So my little defense of us aside, Justin, overall, an absolutely confounding, maddening, thrilling, exacerbating, stupefying, mesmerizing, emotional game. I'm glad that Ohio State came out on the side of it that they did. And it just gives them an opportunity to get better. Like you said earlier, if they would have lost, they still could have been in, not obviously the Big Ten race, but also the national title race. But by winning, this allows them more time and more flexibility to kind of figure things out. And so they have a bigger margin of error moving forward. So any parting thoughts before we head out of here and wrap this one up?
Win's a win. I don't know if I've really taken that mantra because, as we said, I cover the basketball team more, and I don't see as many wins. Well, technically, I see more wins, but this is more games.
Not percentage-wise.
Percentage-wise is a little lower. So win's a win. You learn lessons from every game. I just like learning lessons more from games you win. It's like that. The Colorado Superfan, they did a game day special on last week. Peggy, super nice little old woman. She said, I like being a good loser, but I like being a good winner a lot more. And that's what it is. It's good to win. So they won the game. You get a bye, which I think I thought the bye was earlier first. Now I think the bye is at a perfect time because I do think they need to kind of reset a little bit. This game was just chaotic in the most best of college football ways. And then you reset, and then you get Maryland, and then I think you get somebody, and then you get Penn State. And that's kind of what this is kind of going towards at this point. October 21st can't come soon enough. Penn State looks really good. They didn't look amazing against Illinois, I didn't think, but they looked, I didn't watch too much of the Iowa game. I got to go back. Obviously, it was all at the same time. Yeah. But just from the score and the box score, they looked like they had a great game. So October 21st just can't come soon enough. Is that game at Penn State? I can't even.
No, it's in Columbus at the Horseshoe. I don't believe they've announced a time for that one yet. I would love it to be a night game. We'll see if that ends up happening. Maybe it could be an NBC night game. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things to break down. We will do that throughout the next 2 weeks. Obviously, Marv needs to get every treatment possible throughout the next 2 weeks. Make sure that he is healthy and ready to go, especially after this past week. We learned that he played with a sprained ankle all of last season. So make sure that his legs are in as good a shape as he possibly can. And we will see what happens moving forward. It's a great win. It's a win that this team, I think, needed mentally as much as it did on the scoreboard. And hopefully that Ryan Day can learn those lessons. I'm suspect about him learning lessons because we've seen him now for 5 years not learn some lessons. But if he can look at this either from a motivational standpoint or a play calling standpoint and learn some things about this team and about himself as a play caller, I think that the sky is still a limit for this group. So we will have to wait and see.
Not to just one last thought. I don't know if you even saw this yet. It is confirmed Notre Dame had 10 guys on the field on that last play. So that's not great.
On the touchdown?
Yeah. Marcus Freeman said they were trying to run another defensive end on, but they didn't want to get penalized to give him basically a free touchdown because you penalized around the inch-yard line. So or give him a free play. So they had 10 guys on the field. So that's not ideal if you're Notre Dame.
Did they have a timeout left? I don't remember if they had one left. They did not have a timeout left. Okay.
No. So they used it earlier in that drive. So
yeah. Darn. All right. Thank you for following along. If you were watching us live, we appreciate it. This is only the second time we've done this. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to kind of get into it. We'll do a little bit more, hopefully moving forward, especially after the bye, with trying to get some questions in there. But time to take a deep breath, Justin. You can see on the video, if you're watching us live, where to follow us on social media. You can follow me at BWWMatt. You can follow Justin at Justin_Golba. If you want to follow the podcast, we don't do a ton of tweeting here yet, but it's at Land Grant Pods. If you want to follow the site, it's at Land Grant 33. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Have a great Sunday. Try to come down after that one. It's going to be a crazy time trying to get the emotions down. But
I'm a Browns fan, so I'm sure something bad will happen tomorrow.
That seems fair.
I'm also a Reds fan, which so are you, Matt, and their season ended tonight. So,
I mean, they were up 8-0 in the bottom of the second, and they lose 13-12.
I thought it was going to be the worst Saturday of my life because I saw they lost 13-11, and it was right at the time that Ryan Day ran the end around. I was like, we
didn't even talk about that play. That's how excited we were about this game that we barely talked about it. You mentioned it earlier, but we didn't even break that down. Yeah, I'm glad that that's not the focus of our entire conversation. But anyway, thank you for paying it there. Thank you for checking in with us, for listening, for watching. Have a great rest of your weekend. We will talk to you soon. And as always, go Bucks.